Ding dong. Okay, test. It's working? We're starting? Okay, then welcome to the final local talk of the day, and I guess of the conference, which is going to be me talking about the STF project. I'm going to try to make this quick because we're very short on time before the AGM. So I'm not going to belabor this too much, but Sonny and I have organized the STF project for the past year or so, which is this government program to support maintainers of critical free and open source infrastructure. It was started in 2023. It's by the German government, and yeah, the focus on public interest, technology, and infrastructure. A little bit about the timeline of like sort of how the project was initially organized, just so, like, to give you an idea of sort of what this looked like. We looked at a little bit of the history, and we saw the first contact with STF was like early June, and then the actual kickoff meeting with the actual team and everything was in October, and between then we had like, I don't know, 20 meetings with like all the various teams like accessibility and security and everyone else. We like put together sort of concrete plans for the various things. We like tried to find someone who can work on them. Usually our like goal was to basically find something that someone wanted to do and was also important, and sort of like make it possible for them to do it. So in many cases it's like just give maintainers some time to clean up some stuff or like do something that we've wanted to do for a long time and so on. But I'm gonna try to be fast here. Our goals sort of in terms of like how we approached this were on the one hand to like maximize impact on our project, but also like the broader ecosystem. So it was a lot of like things that we knew were not gonna happen otherwise. They were like too annoying or like too time consuming or stuff like this. The focus was on things that were under-maintained, that like sort of everyone knew for years, like online accounts, like under-maintained, or like the accessibility infrastructure, like people just didn't have the time to dedicate to it. And yeah, the idea was to also like work with the individual groups in the community to like give them time to do the things they want to do, and then yeah, deliver, like actually make sure that we get this done in the time frame that's planned. And yeah. Right, and for that we had a few different tactics. One was obviously just like look at the STF mission, like look at things that are like very clearly infrastructure, very clearly like, yeah, sort of this low level things that everyone needs, plumbing kind of stuff. But then also low hanging fruits, often like both of those things can be true, right? Like for example, the variable refresh rate is one of those where it was like sort of just almost done, like to get the first thing over the line. And what's needed for someone to like just have the time for a little bit, but also like we needed to actually have contractors available to do contracting, and also to do it right now and in the amount of hours that we needed. And then another one was to minimize overhead, which I think mainly worked by like having mostly Sonny, but also me, like just being really embedded with the developer community and like being able to relatively quickly sort of like figure out where those things were and how to organize them, and finding the right people and so on. The project itself we organize it in 8 areas of focus, which are these. I'm going to talk about them later, so I don't have to get into them now. There were 28 contractors overall involved. Yeah, I don't have to talk about all the names now. We're going to talk about some of them a little bit later, but also so many people that it's a bit hard to fit it all in the structure of like a single talk. You could probably do a single talk about each of the 8 areas, and it might be like a bit easier to follow. The structure, yeah. So the GNOME Foundation acted as a fiscal sponsor here for like us organizing this project, although it is a bit more complicated, but different story. Everyone working on this project was a contractor, including Sonny and I, who like were also like managing the project and like or are still managing the project, trying to make sure everything happens on time and so on. We had a single hourly rate for everyone and just like different sort of agreements how many hours people would work, and yeah, generally like just weekly timesheets for reporting. In terms of communication, we had an internal matrix channel where like people would post a weekly update with what they did, and that's what we used for compiling the like monthly updates to STF and just in general like updates to the community. We had a bi-weekly call that's why do I keep saying had? I'm sorry, I'm operating on very little sleep. We have a bi-weekly call where we don't do reporting, we just like check in how everyone's feeling, see if there's blockers, see sort of, if there's like major things that need discussion, and everything else happens in like sort of specific calls with only the team that actually works on those things. We did this week in GNOME post every other week, roughly, depending on how much was going on. And then every month, like we compiled an invoice and a report for Sovereign Tech Fund. On top of just like individual contributors who we contracted, we had 2 partnerships with consultancies that are sort of traditional GNOME consultancies. One is Igalia and the other one is CodeThink. The Igalia one was focused on accessibility in the widest sense, a number of things. We're going to talk about some of them later, including like WebKit and just sort of the whole area around Orca and like documenting issues with it and like fixing them across the stack and just a number of things. And I think a lot of that was also just like, a lot of the benefit of that was also just like getting the right people to talk to each other, because the Orca maintainer works for Igalia. And so just having more time with her, Joni, like getting more like, I think, community members to talk to her a bunch, I think has improved a lot of things in terms of accessibility. The second one was CodeThink, is CodeThink, which is focused on GNOME OS. I don't know why I keep doing this. And just in general QA, including OpenQA, including like a number of improvements to just the sort of like testing infrastructure that we have for GNOME OS and GNOME Build Meta, security tracking and so on. And the important thing about these partnerships, which I can't really take any credit for, like this is all Sonny organizing them and like negotiating them and so on, is that we did not just contract the consultancies sort of as a normal contract, but they also contribute to this. So our budget is not just like the budget we get from STF, but it's like basically double that, sort of, because from these, like sort of those parts of the budget are basically doubled because the consultancies actually contribute their own resources, their own hours to the project. Both, I think, because, like they are GNOME consultancies, and I don't know, there was some good negotiation, I think. But I wasn't involved in this. So I think maybe to explain a little bit why we did these partnerships is, in many cases, it was literally the only way to do things in certain areas. Like for accessibility, we needed the Orca maintainer. And because, like this is where these people work. And then, sort of we paid for about half the work. It's a bit complicated. And then Igalia and CodeThink very graciously are sponsoring a lot of this work. So I would like you to give them a round of applause. Thanks so much to everyone at Igalia and CodeThink who made this happen and is working on it still. A little bit about the budget. So we had a the overall like budget from STF is 1 million, and this is like a very, very like it's. I tried to like make something usable here. It's very hard to like actually make something that makes sense, but it's like a very rough breakdown. So you can basically imagine like those 185 and 150 thing to double essentially in terms of overall budget. There's like the 60K like fiscal sponsorship fee to the foundation. There's the 50K for project management. That's like hours that Sonny and I did. There's the 450K block. That's basically everything else. And then there's about 100K that we have not yet invoiced as of like this month, June. Like the June invoice is the one we sent. July we haven't yet, of course, because we're still in July. This is basically a duplicate of the previous thing. And then there's a few more things. So STF is not only super awesome in like funding maintainers to do the most important work, they also like look at sort of things a little bit around just the maintainership. For example, they want to help people like set up bug bounty programs for security. And there's this partnership with Yes We Hack, which is a platform for bug bounties that we're currently in the trial phase for, like with basically glib and I think libsoup, to see like whether this is gonna work out for us, like whether we're gonna get good reports and so on, and whether it works for maintainers. And if it does, we're gonna expand it. And this is also something that STF is graciously providing for us. It's not part of our regular budget. The other thing is there's a contract being negotiated with a consultancy to help with Blueprint, the like QIA definition format. And this is also like sort of a direct contribution that is in addition to everything else we're getting. We also, again, thanks to I think some good networking and negotiation, we had from the beginning like a good sort of assurance from Red Hat that they would support us sort of in any way needed with reviews, because one of the really important things with this stuff is you always need reviews for stuff to actually like happen. And so that is a really important like side of this. And especially if maintainers already have like a lot of workload and so on, the only really way to like move this forward is to make sure that the employers are like on board. And I would especially like to thank Matthias Klaassen for his support and like everyone on the Red Hat team. So yeah, a round of applause for Red Hat. Current status, okay, well, I guess we're still okay on time. Current status is that time and budget roughly matches our projections. There's around 100K remaining to be invoiced. But like most of the projects are either sort of like done or like on the finish line, except for a few things that are like more longer term things, such as like the Igalia accessibility work. And for that, we have like a pretty clear plan how it's gonna be invoiced until the end of the year. Right, as of like July, the team is like much reduced because like the money is largely spent. And yeah, Igalia is going to be continuing until December. But there are still a few people working on sort of finishing various pieces or yeah, sort of last missing bits. I tried very hard to get like something useful here. It's very difficult to actually sort of do this because like the consultancy contracts, like there's like different rates, and then there's the hours that we get for free, and then there's like people working on different areas, but like sort of the way the invoicing works, it's very tricky to get like precise numbers here. But just like to give you an idea of roughly how much money goes into each of the 8 areas, this is sort of like a rough estimate. There's like the 2 more experimental things that we did, like home encryption and the new accessibility stack, around like 35K. The really big piece is accessibility and QA and to some degree platform, but that's mostly so big because it does so many different like miscellaneous things basically. Are like, yeah, around 200, 150K, and then everything else is kind of somewhere in the middle. But again, very approximate. It's difficult to get like useful numbers for this. Spending over time a little bit. So this is like what we invoiced to STF, which again is complicated by the contracts and so on. But just like sort of as an idea, the big spike there in the middle is CodeThink like doing the majority of their work like in 4 months. So like those 4 months, I think from March to June include like a lot of CodeThink stuff, and then all the other months, as you see, are like kind of similar. Yeah, and like the stuff over there is kind of what we project to be invoicing the next months. And as you see, like most of the money is sort of spent or yeah, most of the money is spent, and like in the next few months we're gonna like sort of be winding down towards completion of the remaining things. About the actual work. So as you've probably noticed, most of the talk you've seen in the last few days mention various STF things in detail. There's not really time to like mention stuff here in that much detail. So I'm gonna basically race through a bunch of like lists of things, and it's I guess maybe more of a bingo, like oh, this I've seen, this I've seen. But yeah, we don't really have time to talk about it in depth. But just to give you sort of like an idea of the scope and the kinds of things that we worked on. So starting with accessibility, yeah, Joni did various Orca maintenance things that were needed, for example, and also like adding some things that were long wanted, for example, like table support. There was a lot of work towards making screen readers fully work on Wayland. There were various approaches, and now there's a new one that's like very promising that might get fixed for 47, but a little bit question mark. A lot of work on WebKit accessibility, accessibility on Windows and macOS via AccessKit in GTK. Just general fixes across the stack, for example, like the fixes that Sam did in the high contrast theme and a number of things like that. There was work to integrate the Spiel, like text-to-speech framework, the high contrast portal, and then the Newton, like new accessibility stack that I don't really have time to get into, but it's a very cool project by Matt Campbell, who is basically like trying to do a whole new native, Wayland native like accessibility stack, and this is work that we're very proud to have supported and kickstarted, and hopefully in the future we can sort of make this a real thing. It was like sort of an experimental prototype thing, but it has gone very well. We're happy with how it went. Security, there's like a lot of sort of under-maintained components in this area. GNOME keyring being one of them, Seahorse being another one, and we had people basically working on either porting this to new libraries or like making replacements and so on. There was work on automated CVE tracking, and the bug bounty program mentioned before, among other minor things. On the hardware support side, one that I'm personally very excited about is support for smaller laptop displays, or like sort of smaller, very common like resolutions in GNOME Shell. There's the variable refresh rate, sort of getting a first version of this actually shipped. Some work towards fractional scaling, although that's still not quite there, I think. But someone correct me. There was work on performance profiling, especially in Mother and I think also GNOME Shell. Work on adaptive widgets for supporting mobile and other different form factors. Improvements to the Bluetooth stuff, to screencasting with hardware encoding, the gesture framework stuff that Jonas finally landed last cycle, various fixes to gamepad stuff, NVIDIA and WebGTK. I don't really remember this, but I think Georges did it. Anyway, there was a lot of maintenance on Flatpak and Portal stuff. I think Georges also like had a big like cleanup sort of the issue tracker and just like the general project management there last year in the fall, and put it on a more stable footing. That was work on the USB portal, which I think is almost done now. Hubert kind of took it over, and it's I think moving along well. The Nautilus file picker that Antonio's been working on. Work on like preferred languages in Flatpak apps, and also the fix for drag and drop between apps. Then app intents, which Andy's working on right now. It's not complete yet, and URL handling support that's kind of connected to it. The global shortcuts work that Dorota did. A bunch of printing stuff. I think this is also George's. And then yeah, WebKit GTK in Flatpak in general. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is maybe a horrible format. I'm just basically reading this off because if I say something about everything, it'll take forever. I have time. Okay, I can say maybe a little bit. Maybe slow down a little bit more. Yeah, online accounts, as maybe briefly mentioned before, has been an area that we were hoping someone would like do something in for a long time, and kind of never materialized, and was in this bad state where we like didn't support sort of the most obvious open protocols, even though the merge request had been open for many years. And so we were very happy that Andy took this on, took over maintainership, and like got a bunch of these really obvious like low-hanging fruit things in, and like put it on stable footing in terms of maintainership. And I think there's some really fun stuff to come, if not this cycle, then over the next cycles, for things like automatically like logging into email providers and so on. That would be very nice to have. Julian did a lot of work on overhauling notifications in every way. The new notification spec, a half dozen like components that need to be updated for it. The UI stuff in GNOME Shell, etc., etc. Alice worked a lot on the sort of underlying pieces in GTK to get CSS variables, and then various things on top of that, like to use it in libadwaita. We got the new dialogues that are adaptive and so on that you already saw earlier in the design talk. And Philip did a fair amount of glib maintenance last year in the fall to like get some long-standing issues in that project ironed out. Async annotations is something I don't remember. I think this is like one of those things that Evan worked on that are like very low-level developer stuff. There's access kits in GTK for accessibility on Windows, Mac OS. General libadwaita maintenance, a lot of minor bug fixes, things like that. And then, like work on the TypeScript binding, I think also by Evan. QA, this is the code thing stuff. So GNOME OS has been moving from the old OS3 stack to the new shiny systemd approved Leonard perfect world security TPM yada yada yada. I don't know. insert Leonard talk here. Sysupdate thing. It's not quite done yet. There's still a few things that are sort of like outstanding. I think something like the size of the images is still a problem, and like one or two other things. But like it's come along very well, and you can actually run this now. Although we're still going to be, I think, on these parallel tracks for some time. But see the GNOME OS talk. Martin has been working on developer tooling for this kind of OS, where you like use the systemd sysext thing, where you like overlay some stuff on the system to basically like build sysext automatically for like merge requests. So you can very easily, even on an immutable system, like test any part of like the stack, including lower level stuff that's really hard to test, and then overlay it on your system. And then magically, if it breaks everything, you can go back, which is nice because it's not broken. And then, yeah, so Sam, I think, did a lot of work around OpenQA and improving that. And testable merge request. Okay, maybe there's some other sysext tool that I'm not thinking of now, but anyway, yeah, a lot of good developer tooling stuff also as part of this. Home encryption. So Adrian Wovk, who we all love, has been working on this like sort of somewhat experimental, but like holy grail security thing that everyone's been talking about for years, where like systemd homed has been there for years in systemd, and like it was always like a question like when and how are we gonna actually integrate it in the actual thing that people use, right? And there are some tricky things from a UI side that you actually need to think about. For example, the fact that like the partitions need to like resize in order to like whatever not like waste a lot of space on disk. And there's also some tricky design stuff which I was not involved with. I'm very happy that Sam Hewitt took over all of this and did a great job and worked with Adrian to make this happen. And as part of this, Adrian has done both a lot of work in systemd and also across the entire stack in GNOME, like GDM, like all of the different like lower level bits you need in the login and session stack. Right, and he's also worked on a new installer for GNOME OS, sort of as part of this, to support some of these features, and also make GNOME OS more of a viable thing as part of that. Then on top of like sort of all these fancy, maybe like a small applause for all the very, very cool stuff that everyone has been doing over the past year. Thanks everyone. But I think it's also easy to always like list off like whatever with this and this and this and this and this and this. But like everyone knows that in practice there's like all these like really annoying long tail things that where like it just takes 3 weeks to just like clean up the whatever issue tracker or like remove the old APIs or something. And no one's like really gonna applaud that usually. So I wanted to like include this a little bit, just like sort of to make it very obvious. There are like 4 specific areas. I think I mentioned them maybe already, but just like to make it explicit. 4 areas where we like really focused on like actually this maintenance aspect, and that's glib, Orca, portals, and online accounts, which I think all sort of benefited from it, like in addition to like features and stuff in this way. So I'm very happy that we got that, and I don't think this would be possible with many other like programs that support free software. So I'm very happy for STF for STF's focus on this in particular. And then another thing that I'm not sure if this list is like complete, but this is what I vaguely remembered when I like quickly finished the slides earlier. Thanks to STF, like some of the members like have become new maintainers of modules. Both Andy and Adrian are maintaining new modules now, and some community members were hired by, in this case, both CodeThink, to work specifically on the things that we needed for STF. So we're very happy to do like sort of, I don't know, that the whole ecosystem is like benefiting from this, and ideally like more stability comes into these modules in this way. Then another like quick note on the bug resilience program that we're also getting from STF. As I mentioned, like there's these 2 sides to it. There's the bug bounty, and then there's this contract. Both like in the early phases essentially. But yeah, also thanks to STF for this additional very cool stuff. And maybe just in general, sort of like all of the different groups that have have made this possible. Obviously, the Sovereign Tech Fund, but yeah, Gali and CodeThink for their very generous sponsorship as part of their partnerships. Red Hat for helping with reviews and like moving things along, and Leonard and Systemd for like reviewing stuff and also like moving things along on the Systemd side, because it was an important part for various parts of the grant. Yes, thanks to all of them. And then I'd also like to thank just in general, like not only sort of like the people working for whatever various of these communities or companies, just in general, the whole community has been very supportive and like helping us sort of, yeah, move this along as best as possible. And we're very thankful to all of them, because also without them, this would not be possible. So another applause for them. And finally, the STF team, who has like over the past year, like just done amazing work in incredibly like in an incredibly self-reliant fashion. I don't think it would be possible in any other context to have like so little like coordination needed for people to like get this much done. I think it's really incredible that like with the amount of money and sort of the amount of resources, like this many things were happening at the same time, like with like, yeah, very little issues and conflict. So yes, thanks to them so much. And with that, this is the end of my talk. We still have potentially a few minutes for questions, but yeah, we can also do a 10-minute break and then do the AGM. So maybe also 2 questions max, if any. Also, I just realized I forgot to put the link to the slides there. If you want the slides, ask me later. So we will make a blog post based on the content here, so like it'll be accessible in some form for sure, and I will link the slides there if I forget to somehow, I don't know, figure out how to add them here.
Not really a question, but just to complete the list of community members who help with reviews and making everything that the STF team has been working on possible to get into the main branches. Maybe partly my fault for not replying in time to add people to the list, but also I'd like to request some recognition for Cory Berla and Peter Eisenman and Khalid from the Nautilus team, who have been helping me a lot with reviews and feedback and general discussion on the direction for the file chooser implementation.
Yeah, thanks so much to the Nautilus team. Sorry, as I said, it's impossible to have everyone. One more question? If not, have a question, sorry. What's next for STF? I mean, we have to finish the things that are ongoing. Or what are we talking about? I don't know, well, no, STF is a yearly thing. So like for the 2024 or whatever year, like it's a separate application, which we are in the process of like sort of planning, like, I don't know, the initial meetings with the various groups, seeing like what people's priorities are, like what kinds of things people would like. But to be honest, like there are some pretty large administrative problems at the moment with the GNOME Foundation. And I cannot promise anything right now. Like yeah, we are hoping that like in the next month or so, like we will like meet with all the various teams and like sort of get this going. But as of right now, I don't know like what's gonna be next. Thanks.